Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got an interesting show for you. We're going to answer the question, or try to answer the question, is Graham Mertz better than Danny Weurffel or Shane Mathews? Because Shane Mathews certainly thinks that he is. And this might shock you a little bit. We're also going to take a look at a couple of YouTubers that are discussing it down in Florida, but I think they're all convinced that they've got their next Danny Weurffel or their next Shane Mathews or better. We'll see. This is going to be intriguing, this video. Now, before I get started, I've been watching the Gators. As you know, I like to keep an eye on them because they are my nemesis.
Hello, Noman.
Hello, Jerry.
They've been a problem ever since Steve Spurrier. They've been a fly in the ointment, or they've been a thorn in my side, and for the Vols. But last year we finally got the monkey off our back and beat them up here in Knoxville. We need to beat them at the Swamp. That way we've fully got the monkey off our back 1,000%, and we can move forward and start dominating them on a regular basis. But anyway, this is interesting because this is High Top Sports, who I've shown before, but they're actually covering Shane Mathews on his podcast in part of this, and then I'm covering that. So you've got three different YouTube channels all on the same path here, and we're going to see how it all comes together. But anyway, we'll start out with High Top Sports. And if you want to know what's going on in Florida football, High Top Sports is the way to go, because they also have a guy there that covers FSU, and they do a good job. I might make a little sport of them. We'll see. Probably not, knowing me.
One thing I will say is he was right about Anthony, and we were all wrong about Anthony. Is he right? Is he going to be 2 for 2 this year? Right? I mean, there's something out of everybody talking, out of everyone on here, he's the only guy that's played the game competitively.
That's true.
in all aspects.
That's High Top Sports talking about Shane Mathews, his podcast, where he is the guy. He was never really high on Anthony Richardson, and he really likes this Graham Mertz guy. Now, understand, I kind of get the feeling that Florida is almost glad that Anthony Richardson has gone to the NFL. I think they were sort of ambivalent about it, because Anthony was either fantastic like he was against us, or like he was against Utah, or he must not have been very good at all, because they did lose to, Vanderbilt, and they lost to Kentucky. So I'm not, they would have been fine with him coming back, but the fact that he went to the NFL, I don't think they're that upset about it, even though they seem to like him, even though they do like him. But you can kind of tell they kind of had enough of that hitting 50% of your passes, no matter how fast he could run. And he was super dangerous. I mean, I think they're going to miss him a lot more than they realized this year, because when they didn't have him in that bowl game, they lost, 30-3, and they had to kick a field goal with like a minute left just to get on the scoreboard.
Yeah, you got to put it into factor. We are guys that cover Florida. We do not play the quarterback position, so he has more insight on the quarterback position than we do. And I do trust what Shane Mathews says, because a lot of the times when I listen to the Pod Up and he talks about something, he's right. So, I mean, when I heard him talking about it, I think you got the video clip anyway, but I heard him talking about how Graham Mertz will vastly improve the offense. There's going to be a lot more passing in the offense instead of a lot more running. When I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, you're a quarterback. You've been in the NFL for over 10 years. You had a decade there. Am I going to trust your opinion now? Of course I am. Because nobody really knows. Like right now, as we were talking about at Wisconsin, we obviously we'll make excuses for him, but like at the same time, he still put up those statistics and those numbers at Wisconsin, so we can't take that away from him. But in June, when you put him on a different team, what will he do? And then you got Shane Mathews talking about what he's been seeing in camps and how the arm, his arm is so much better than a lot of the arms that he's ever seen in college football. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of fans pumped up there. And I think he predicted us going 8-4 too. I think he said he doesn't think the team's all the way there yet, but he thinks the quarterback play is going to pick up. So
let's watch the clip here.
Go ahead, play the clip.
I saw one of your questions here while you're replaying that tidbit there. Yeah. Somebody mentioned about how we're going to be run heavy and dink and dunk or something. That's not the case, folks. I don't know why that's a narrative out there. I think it's just because you actually have 4 really good running backs, but probably 2 that only people around the country know about. So they think you're going to lean heavy on the run. We're going to throw it around. They trust Graham Mertz. He's got a better arm than I had. He's got a better arm than Weurffel had. He's extremely accurate. He knows the system. We're going to throw the football. I saw one of your questions
now,
here.
Here's
while you were
something
playing
to note that too, right? He's not even saying that. Here's what I'm thinking. He's saying it with conviction, as if he had a conversation with.
Yeah, that's kind of a shocker. I didn't expect that to come out of Shane Mathews' mouth. Now, understand he's got his own podcast. It's called Pod Up with Mathews in the morning. So he does a fairly regular show on YouTube. So if you ever want to watch him, be sure to check that one out too. He is a typical former really good quarterback. Look, the guy was SEC Player of the Year not once but twice. And he said that this guy's got a better arm than he does. Then he said he's got a better arm than Danny Weurffel, who won the Heisman. So pretty strong statements. But that's the thing about former quarterbacks, especially really successful ones like he was. They're a little overconfident sometimes with their statements, and they just kind of it's just who they are. That's their personality. It's how they're able to win in tough situations. They just believe it. Whether it's accurate or not, sometimes it's more important to believe it than it is for it to be true when you're in the battle.
He ain't lying.
The night before, and I can imagine they're both just hanging out in their sofa, their lounger, bro,
like that,
bro, buddy.
That dude as comfy as could be, bro.
Exactly. This is what. Hey, listen up, okay? We're gonna throw for 345 yards, 3 tutties a game, and we may hand the ball off.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Stevie?
Look, I mean, I can understand where everybody gets the concept that this is going to be a run-heavy offense, because if you just look at the history of Billy Napier, that's what he just likes to do. You also have, like Shane Mathews just said, premier backs that can carry a football team and get you where you want to be. And we saw that last year when Richardson struggled. Even with Richardson not being able to move the ball much, even against Florida State in the second half. I mean, you guys were still able to move the ball on the ground simply because of the running style and what Billy likes to do in that regard. Now, if they trust Mertz as much as Shane Mathews says that they do, then yeah, things could open up a little bit more and maybe they don't have to rely on that. But historically, from what you can see with Billy, what he's recruited, what he's emphasized in recruiting, I can understand why the majority of people will say they are going to rely on that running game heavily, especially to Dave's point with where Mertz seems to have the most accuracy on the field in those underneath routes.
So I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these numbers of Graham Mertz, and you can see he's been typically around 60%, maybe a little bit less, 59, 57. Let's call last 2 years he's been at 58% completion rate. He's had 29 touchdowns over those 2 years and 21 interceptions. That's not very good, and that doesn't show that you're very accurate. And Wisconsin was more of a running team, so you would think it would be pretty easy to throw in that offense because most teams are going to try to stop the run. So I'm a little bit surprised that he feels like he's that accurate. Now, he may be amazing in practice, but maybe in the game, maybe not as much. I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, we're going to get to see very soon because the thing is they're playing Utah in game 1. And that's a tough game, and it's at Utah. So we're going to see a lot of what this guy can do because Utah's a solid team. And that's a tough game to start out with. So we'll find out very quickly. But let's see what else they've got to say about Florida's quarterback situation.
It's so hard to predict how Graham Mertz is going to be in this offense. I mean, just because there's so many different intangibles that he didn't have that Richardson had. And that's the only thing that we have right now is Richardson, what he did last year in Billy Napier's offense. And then obviously you've got transfers that came in and the roster's flipped and everything else. So it's really hard to compare just because where Anthony Richardson excels, Mertz does it, and then vice versa. Mertz excels where Anthony Richardson doesn't. So it's kind of weird to think about that in an aspect. But and I also thought about this too because Max Brown, he's a really good runner. Do you do kind of like the Chris Lee,
the Tebow?
Tebow kind
of.
I mean,
Dave reaching deep in his pockets. Dave, don't do that. I mean, somebody clip that. They're gonna fire. That's gonna.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
By some people. I love that thought process. I don't think Billy has that in his arsenal.
You know what exactly they're going to do if you do clip that and put it out there? They're going to say, "Oh well, David said that it's going to be like Chris Leak and Tim Tebow now."
How dare you!
I cannot believe they think someone would do that. I would never clip a little video clip like that and put that out there. That's just ridiculous. I'm heavily offended.
That's exactly.
I mean,
what
it's going to be exactly the same thing. I completely agree that Max Brown's going to be the next Tim Tebow, and Graham Mertz is a Chris Leak, a very underappreciated quarterback. You're not wrong, Dave.
I'll cut him some slack there. Obviously, they're being facetious, but I did like that. That Max Brown, I believe he's a freshman, and they're comparing him a little bit to Tim Tebow. We'll see about that. Tim Tebow, man, what a monster that guy was. Ugh, brings back some of my battered Vols syndrome. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. We'll see. I don't know. I just don't see how a guy throwing under 60% the last 2 years is going to somehow be better than Shane Mathews or Danny Weurffel. And is Billy Napier Steve Spurrier? I don't think so. I just don't think so. So we'll see how this plays out. But I thought you folks up here in Tennessee land might enjoy watching some of that. Now look, if Graham Mertz has a great game next year, it's going to be against Tennessee. You just might as well know that, because Anthony Richardson threw for like 450 yards and then ran for about 1,000 more on top of that. He was a one-man wrecking crew. If not for him, we'd have probably won that game by 20, 30 points. But that's not how it is. You know, for whatever reason, maybe because our secondary was terrible last year at times, a lot of quarterbacks had their way. I thought y'all might be interested in watching that. Better arm than Danny Weurffel and better arm than Shane Mathews. We'll see. We will see. The numbers don't bear that out, and it is 2 years. It's not like we don't have anything to go by. He started in 30 games. So anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover the Vols and all our opponents and all that good stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll love. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay. And I'm glad Shane Mathews and Danny Weurffel are not quarterback at Florida. I can say that.